that's the first time I was like, okay, I like this guy. I think I like this guy. And he just so happened to be friends with my... Burundi is a very small place. Everyone knows each other. You all play, do the same activities. So yeah, that was 12 years old me.
I was in an environment with a lot of kids that are actually struggling with a lot of mental, a lot of vocal abilities. And after that, that's when, when she was playing tennis, I was learning how to speak English.
No, but at 12, were you still at Flamboyant? Okay.
So I was, grade 5. I started at grade 5, so it was boarding school. Mm-hmm. Started my boarding school grade 5, which was age of 10, and then I left at age of 13 or 14.
I first moved to Burundi when I was 6 as well, because it was the beginning of the civil war in 1993. So, and it was also quite a traumatic experience because we went to Belgium and I thought that we were going on a holiday. And it was myself, my older brother, my younger sister, at the time Leslie was 4 years old only, and my mom. So the 4 of us fly to Belgium. My mom's sister lived in Belgium at the time. She had 2 daughters, so we stayed with them. And in my head, I thought that we were on holiday. And then all of a sudden, we're visiting schools. And the next thing I know, I'm in boarding school. And fast forward to when I'm 8, my brother and I go to Burundi on holiday. At the time, we were still in the middle of a civil war, but I guess the situation was a little bit better than 1993. And so we go on holiday, and at the end of the holiday, I decided, guys, I'm not going back. I told my parents, I'm not going. Whatever you do, I'm not going. So Carl left alone.
Oh, wow.
So he went back to boarding school in Belgium. So he was in a mixed school. And I guess boys have sometimes different ways to react. He was very independent from a very young age. So he was fine. So he went back and then I stayed. That's why I'm saying, so that's why earlier when we spoke about when I was 12, I was still in Burundi. So from the age of 8 until I was 15, I was in Burundi. And those were very great years for me because maybe there was a part of me that knew what I had lost a couple of years prior to that. So I was a very, very active child. And I think there was a part of me that was also an overachiever because in my head I was like, if I do well and if I do everything that the parents want, then they're not gonna let go of me again. Because at that age, I wasn't understanding why did my sister stay and we left, but she was 4. But at that age, you don't register it like that. You're like, probably she's liked more than I am. So then I need to overcompensate for them to keep me. So age 8 to 15, greatest years. Like, I loved it. Yeah. And then we were back again, shipped to Canada the following time. So
I think on my side, when it comes to, I became a teen when I was already in boarding school. So my first years as a teen, I was in Flamboyant, and by then I was struggling. Same as Steffi. So we had a telecom card, PayPoint phone. So in our boarding school. So we used to all wait and like line by line, go there, put your telecom card, call your parents, just check up on them. So the first week of being there, I waited for everyone to finish so that the course was clear. And then I went to the telecom card. I had my 20 Rand telecom card, put it in, called them, made sure there was no one behind me. And then I started crying and I said, come fetch me now. Come fetch me now. I'm ready. Like, my bag is packed. You guys can fetch me and we're out of here. And my parents were just like, my friend, we're in Swaziland. You are in Nelspruit in a small town called White River, Vitrefil. And I was really struggling in regards to the people that I was with. I was in a room with like, I think it was like 4 or 5 like Afrikaans kids, and they were a bit older than me, and they were, talking about just things that make them happy. Boys, being boys. And for me, I was timid, quiet, shy. So that was my first experience. My dad said, "Be strong, my son." And my mom said, "We'll pray for you." So I realized I'm not coming. So I stopped crying, wiped myself before anyone saw me. And I made sure that I walked away looking like I was a stronger person. But deep down, I think I was broken. So, I struggled. I really struggled. But at the same time, I started realizing things about me when I was a teen in primary school. And because it was a remedial school, there were a lot of people that had bigger issues than I had. I had issues with the language English. So I was really, really struggling in terms of spelling, writing, speaking, and there were people that were having really mental issues, So I sat back and I realized that there were a lot of people around me that needed more of my assistance. So instead of being so focused on me, I started focusing on the others around me. In terms of dating, back to your question, I did not date anyone because from my side, I was still trying to find my feet. And while everyone else was living life, I was still trying to discover. And I was discovering more the people around me. That was when I was in Flamboyant. And then when I moved from Flamboyant, went to a school called Uplands for high school. That's when almost like I had switched my mind saying, now you are in a school with people that are almost labeled normal. But for me, I really had a great experience in Flamboyant. I really loved it. Until to this day, I tell Steffi. But Uplands was like, normal people, enjoy yourself, which I definitely did. But at the same time, I got to a point where I still was not really that active in terms of dating. And whenever I dated, it wasn't nothing that was extremely serious. So that was, I think, my experience. So my dating life has been questionable. There's a lot of question marks. So you can speak to it.
My dating life.
That's legit.
I did say it started at the age of 12. And there's this thing again, Burundi is so small, and we're bad because we would date each other. We were that small, close community. So, I would say very active dating life until I left Burundi. And then when I was in Canada, not really, until maybe my early 20s.
I was a preacher. Oh, Lord have mercy. So I was like head of anything Christ driven. I was head of praise and worship. I was head of I was very prayerful, but like I used to be I used to not give people a chance to breathe, kind of prayerful. Like I used to tell them, like, you don't know Jesus, and if you did, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing, and after that I used to, just see people dating and saying, that's ungodly, that's ungodly, but be who you are, but at the same time, I'm better, you know what I mean? So I used to, in a lot of cases, I used to portray myself in that way, but towards the end of my high school, grade 11, grade 12, I had started getting to know a few ladies, and my dating life was really not, like, when I speak about bad, I mean like my longest relationship was, I think, 3 months. and I had a relationship for like 24 hours. So yeah, and then I struggled. So I would not say that, ultimately my walk with Christ helped me in that path, So it was a bit difficult. But after I left high school and I went into university, I still was struggling because I got into university. I was my sister, and we joined a Christian organization. So that Christian part of me just grew. But then at the same time, for me, I almost wanted to break free and start to understand what my life without attachment to things around me looked like. And that's when I only got the opportunity to do that when I moved from my university to Rwanda, when I had my first working experience. And when I had my first working experience in Rwanda, that's when I got the opportunity to almost like create a new facade, a new persona, where I used to speak to different girls, and I used to almost sound like I was a person that was extremely, experienced and extremely charming and extremely all these things. But I think as time went by, all the girls could read through what I was like trying to say, which was, this guy is not experienced and this guy is trying to put a facade. So there was a lot of confusion. When I met Steffi, I had gone through people, reading through me and just understanding that this guy, he's not experienced, this guy is not. And when I met Steffi, I think I got to a point where I was saying, I'm very confident, I can approach her, I can speak to her without any reservations. And do I believe that I can get her? Definitely yes. Is it going to be easy? Hell no. And I approached, my head held high, spoke to her, got rejected, took it like a man, and I digested that, and after that I continued following. So I think my journey with Steffi was that journey of saying, I'm just going to try my very best to be honest, where I can speak to her, I can show her how comfortable I am, I can show her how of a good dancer I am, I can show her everything that I'm good at, so that she looks at me like that whole peacock, like perspective. But after she looks at me, I can also be honest with her, and I can tell her about my experiences and lack of experiences. So I think that was my experience with Steffi. I think you can.
But I couldn't tell. When he approached me, like he said, he was very confident. So I couldn't tell he didn't have experience, like in the dating, sphere. So I was quite surprised when he said I was the first real relationship he ever had. And I think when he approached me again, my head wasn't in that space. I had broken up with my ex-boyfriend maybe 6 months before I met Jessy. So I was still just processing all the feelings, and it was someone that we grew up together, so we were very close friends. So I think I was still in that head that, and on top of that, when I met him, I had this impression that he was with someone else, because when I met him, he came to this party with this other girl. So for me, it was like a no-no. I'm like, first of all, in my head, I'm not in that space. Second of all, you're dating, I believe you're dating someone that I know. So, it's a no-go. So that's what he means by rejection. I didn't even want to go for a coffee with him. And he kept saying, all I want is for us to just go and share coffee. And I was like, no, man, because I'm in Burundi for a couple of weeks. At the time I was living in Canada, but I was in Burundi for my best friend's wedding. I had actually 2 very close girlfriends getting married during that time. So I was there for those events, so and Yes, I was avoiding
Okay,
it,
sorry.
but it's fine. Yes, my brother also had an engagement, traditional engagement at the time. So I had 3 events. So in my head, I'm like, I know why I'm in Bujumbura. It's very specific, I'm there for that. I don't have time for drama to be going to grab coffee with other people's boyfriends, number one. And second, I don't think my heart right now can take any other adventure. Plus, I was like, I'm meeting this guy in Burundi, but I'm leaving in a couple of weeks, going back to my life in Montreal. So what's the point? Because I've never been the girl that dates for a fling or whatever, it was always some serious relationship. So really in that moment, I wasn't in that headspace, but also I couldn't tell he didn't have experience. Obviously, I didn't tell my dad about Jessy, but my mom knew. And she could tell we constantly speaking. I said, Mommy, you know what? It might be a no. I'll never know if this relationship is gonna work unless I give it a try. And now there's even a job attached to it. So, So that's how I moved. But the day I landed in Burundi, we dated from that day. When I returned to Burundi, we were something.
When I started to speak to her a long distance, but I think, man, your question has like a lot of layers to it. And the reason why it has a lot of layers to it is I sit back and I ask my parents today, and I have conversations with my parents where I tell them that I feel that I have not had real relationships in my life from a very young age because I knew exactly what they wanted from me. I got to know Steffi. I felt that Steffi, everyone around me was saying Steffi is a person that you cannot touch. A person that is doing so great in terms of her professional, her sense of being. She had such a great reputation in Canada that everyone was just like, Jess, that's you aiming a bit too high. So when they said that, they ignited that thing internally where I said, that's exactly who I'm gonna get. So when I got through to Steffi, I told her from the beginning that my intent is not short term. I wanted to get to know her, and I wanted to compare that with what others had told me about her. But my intention was, I want this to be serious. I want my sisters in Canada to get to know her. I want my elder sister, Garens, to get to know her. I wanted my parents to get to know her. I wanted my family to get to know her. So I got into this.
I had forgotten the episode where I went to see your sisters.
Yes.
Imagine going to meet the sisters before you even go on a date with the guy.
Yeah.
That's when I knew maybe this was really serious for you.
Yeah.
After I met your parents virtually, then your sisters were in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Then I knew you were like, this was serious. Yeah.
So I think the moment I got to know her, it almost was getting to that point where you've got that chart in front of you, and everything your parents have told you about, you're there, and you're ticking, and then it gets to a point where everything has been like ticked, and then you look at another, you're adding more points. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was just like, it's a privilege, and it's a huge, I'm lucky to have had this opportunity. And from then onwards, I was like, my purpose and my objective is I'll get married to this person.
Me, I still needed to leave Canada. It felt like things were aligning for sure, because I was like, oh my God, I've applied for all of these jobs. I'm not getting any return except the job in Burundi. So maybe things are aligning for us to then try the relationship. But honestly, the moment I landed in Burundi, And people will tell you, we were actually, sometimes it was like sad to watch from outside. We were obsessed with each other. You know, maybe everyone, you know, when
They
the
go through
beginning
that. They go
of
through
a relationship,
that.
you go through it.
Honeymoon.
So I think during that period, then I was like, okay, this is something. This could be, you know, turn out into something serious. And again, maybe because of my experience with dating, I had had previous experience, so I could tell Jessy was different. There was something about him that was different. I think the way he respected and loved his family, for me, spoke volume. And his approach to me was different. Because again, I had grown up in Burundi more than he did. So I could see, you know, that little bit of a macho African type of guy mentality. But Jessy didn't have that. You know, his artistic, very sensitive side of him was real. So I felt, you know, I felt like this could turn. Our road to marriage was very, how do you say lucid? Like very.
I think real.
Real.
It was very real.
There's
authentic.
Raw, and there wasn't, you know, any fairy tale kind of situation, because you both find yourself. It was a completely new environment for me. Not so new to him, but he's coming back in a different context. He's not a student anymore. So you're coming back professional, trying to find yourself professionally. He works for my uncle. I'm working as well. And SA can be such a complex and very difficult environment professionally. So you put that dynamic on. I came from a place where Canada I felt was all kumbaya, all races, we can be together. Then I landed in corporate South Africa, the first shock. Then he's still going through his own frustration because he's working for my uncle. Things are not working out the way he would want. And then we try to make something out of this relationship. The events that followed that day, he completely shut down.
When she lashed out, if this is the sacrifice one has to make sure that they're happy in a relationship, I say no.